Welcome to our deep dive into online reputation management. It's a fascinating challenge you've given us. How do companies navigate this digital world where, one misstep can become a huge crisis?
And with our source material today, an audio file by Charlie Pownall, full of real-world examples and expert insights, I think we're ready to uncover the strategies companies use to not just survive, but thrive.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Powell kicks things off with a story about Qantas, the Australian airline, and their #Qantas luxury campaign. They asked people to tweet about their dream luxury flights, but things took a turn.
Yeah. What's so fascinating here is that Qantas unintentionally gave a platform to all these disgruntled customers. And instead of these glamorous travel fantasies, they just got a flood of complaints about cramped seats and flight delays.
Oh, wow. So their attempt to create positive buzz totally backfired. It's a classic example of how quickly things can go wrong on social media. But what makes this different from just regular customer complaints?
Well, the speed and reach of social media amplified those complaints to a whole new level. Suddenly, it wasn't just a few grumpy customers, it was national news, with everyone from the BBC to the Sydney Morning Herald piling on.
It makes you wonder if companies are walking a tightrope with every social media campaign. What could Qantas have done differently to avoid this?
Well, they could have anticipated the potential for negative feedback. Instead of just focusing on the positive, they should have been prepared to address concerns. Manage expectations. Social media is a dialogue. It's not a one-way broadcast.
So how, instead of ignoring the negativity, companies should kind of embrace it as part of the conversation?
Precisely. Acknowledge the concerns. Address them head-on. And use it as an opportunity to show your commitment to customer satisfaction.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's not just unhappy customers companies need to worry about, right? Powell also talks about how competitors can weaponize social media for more sinister purposes.
Absolutely. The low barrier to entry on social media means that anyone can launch a campaign, including, smear campaigns, designed to damage a competitor's reputation.
Powell uses the example of Axus and their sophisticated use of social media to spread their message. They were using an app, Dawn of Glad Tidings, to keep followers updated and to disseminate propaganda.
And the Brookings Institute found that they had tens of thousands of Twitter accounts. Pumping out these coordinated messages, it really highlights that dark side of social media and how it can be used to manipulate public opinion.
It's scary to think about. And it's not just on a global scale with organizations like Axus. Powell also brings up a case closer to home, Pownall, a manufacturer in Hong Kong. They were hit with an anonymous video, alleging that they used moldy jelly in their herbal medicine.
What's striking about the Pownall case is that the source of the video was never actually confirmed. It could have easily been a competitor trying to sabotage them, yet it caused significant damage to their business. It was even picked up by major news outlets like the South China Morning Post.
So even if the allegations are unfounded, the damage can be very real. It makes you wonder about this whole issue of anonymity online. Is it a force for good or bad?
It's a complex question. Anonymity can protect whistleblowers and allow for free expression, but it can also be a shield for malicious actors. Finding the right balance is a challenge that we continue to grapple with as a society.
It's a lot to consider. But amidst all this talk of negativity and risk, Powell also highlights how social media can be a powerful force for good, especially for individuals and NGOs looking to challenge the status quo.
He does. It's almost as if the internet has leveled the playing field. Smaller entities now have the ability to reach a global audience and hold even the biggest corporations accountable.
Like the story of Molly Catchpole, the grad student who took on Bank of America over their plan to introduce a $5 monthly debit card fee.
She didn't just complain, she took action. Catchpole started a petition on change.org, gathering over 300,000 signatures and convincing thousands to close their accounts. Bank of America eventually caved under the pressure.
Talk about people power. It's inspiring to see how one person can leverage social media to create real change. Powell also discusses how NGOs like Oxfam are making waves in the online space.
Their campaign against Nestle and Mars, highlighting the exploitation of women in the cacao industry, is a great example. Oxfam mobilized over 100,000 people, forcing these chocolate giants to address their labor practices and commit to fairer treatment of their female employees.
It seems like social media has become this incredible tool for activism and holding powerful entities accountable. It's fascinating to see how it's shifted the balance of power. But even with all this potential for good, let's face it, things can go wrong online, really wrong. What happens when a company finds itself in the middle of an online crisis?
Well, that's where having a solid crisis management plan becomes absolutely crucial. Powell uses a great example, the FedEx package throwing incident. You might remember that video. It went viral.
Oh yeah, that FedEx employee just launching a package over a fence. I can't believe the package contained a computer. What did FedEx do?
Shayla Ordanu, the PR manager at FedEx, had a textbook perfect response. First, she made sure the video was authentic and tracked down the customer, which actually took over a day because the video didn't have many clues.
So she didn't rush into damage control mode. She took the time to gather all the facts first.
Exactly. Then she went straight to Twitter, issued a sincere apology, offered to replace the computer and meet with the customer, and made it clear that the employee had been disciplined, she was transparent, accountable, and addressed the situation head on.
It's amazing how much of a difference a well-executed response can make, especially when you compare it to cases like the Malaysia Airlines MH370 disappearance, where a lack of clear communication really amplified the crisis.
The contrast is stark. Malaysia Airlines waited hours to issue a statement, didn't apologize, and provided very little information, leaving everyone in the dark. And this only fueled speculation and conspiracy theories.
It sounds like they were trying to control the narrative. Instead of being open and honest with the public, that rarely ends well in the digital age.
Transparency is key, especially during a crisis. People want to see that you're taking the situation seriously and taking steps to rectify it.
That reminds me of another example Powell mentions, the KitchenAid tweet controversy. An executive made an offensive remark about President Obama, which obviously sparked outrage.
Cynthia Soledad, the executive, handled it brilliantly. She immediately deleted the tweet, issued a sincere apology, and took full responsibility for her actions. Even though the situation was different from the FedEx incident, the principles of a swift and genuine apology remain the same.
It seems like there's a common thread here, whether it's a package throwing incident, a missing plane, or an offensive tweet. Owning your mistakes and taking swift action can go a long way in mitigating the damage. But what about when the source of the crisis comes from within the company itself? Powell talks about the Applebee's receipt controversy, where a pastor left a note on a receipt refusing to tip, and the waiter then posted it on Facebook.
This case really highlights the complexities of managing employee-related issues online. Applebee's apologized to both the pastor and for the Facebook post, emphasizing that sharing customer information was against their policy. But then they fired the waiter.
And that sparked a huge backlash. Many felt like the waiter was just venting about a rude customer, and that Applebee's overreacted. It seems like they prioritized the customer's perspective over their employees.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance. They needed to protect the customer's privacy, but also consider the employee's perspective and the court of public opinion, perhaps a more nuanced approach, involving a conversation with the waiter and a less severe disciplinary action could have led to a better outcome.
It's a reminder that companies need to be mindful of all stakeholders involved, especially in a situation that plays out so publicly online. So we've talked about responding to crises, but what about the proactive side of online reputation management? How can companies build a positive online presence from the ground up?
Powell emphasizes the value of creating a corporate blog. It provides a platform for companies to tell their story, share their values, and engage with their audience on their own terms.
I wouldn't have thought of a blog as being so essential for online reputation management. What makes it so effective?
Well, think about it. On social media, you're limited to short-form content. But a blog allows you to delve deeper into complex topics, provide context, and showcase your expertise. It also gives you a space to address any misconceptions or negative feedback in a more comprehensive way.
So it's not just about putting out fires, it's about building a solid foundation of communication and thought leadership. It's almost like having your own media outlet where you can control the narrative.
Exactly. It's about being proactive rather than reactive. Instead of waiting for something to go wrong, you're actively shaping the conversation and building trust with your audience.
It sounds like a smart strategy. It's like planting a garden. You need to cultivate it, nurture it, and make sure it's healthy so it can withstand any storms that come its way. Speaking of storms, with all this talk of crises and negative feedback, it's easy to get caught up in the reactive side of things. But Powell makes a great point about the sheer speed at which information travels online.
Absolutely. We've seen how quickly things can go viral, for better or for worse. That's why having a plan in place is essential. You need to be able to respond swiftly and effectively, or risk losing control of the narrative.
It's like you're constantly on high alert,
Yeah.
monitoring the digital landscape for any potential threats.
But it's not just about reacting to negativity. It's also about proactively building a positive online presence.
Right. What kind of content are you putting out there? Are you engaging with your audience authentically? Are you building a community around your brand? These are all crucial aspects of online reputation management.
It's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix. But even with the best preparation and the most carefully crafted responses, things can still go wrong. That's the reality of the digital age. The internet never forgets. And that brings us to an important point that Pownall doesn't explicitly address: the long-term implications of online reputation.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What do you mean by that?
Well, we focused on the immediate impact of viral incidents, but what about the subtle, cumulative effects of online information? Negative reviews, social media comments, even forum discussions can slowly erode a company's reputation over time.
It's like death by a thousand cuts. Even if you don't have a major crisis, you still need to be vigilant about monitoring your online presence and addressing any potential issues before they snowball.
Precisely. It's about consistently nurturing your online reputation, weeding out negativity and fostering positive growth. And this requires a deep understanding of how online information is consumed and shared, and how it ultimately shapes perceptions.
It's a constant process of tending to your digital garden, making sure it's flourishing, and representing your brand in the best possible light.
Exactly. It's no longer just about damage control or crafting clever responses. It's about cultivating an authentic and engaging online presence that truly reflects your company's values and builds lasting trust with your audience.
It's about moving beyond perception management and focusing on building genuine relationships in the digital space. Relationships that are built on transparency, authenticity, and a willingness to engage in open and honest dialogue.
And that's where the human element becomes so crucial, even in the digital age. It all comes back to connecting with people on a human level, understanding their needs, and building trust through genuine interactions.
That's such an important point. But before we wrap up this part of the conversation, didn't Pownall mention something about additional resources for those who want to delve deeper into these topics?
He did. He encourages listeners to connect with Blinkist, the platform where his audio file is hosted. For additional insights, you'll find the email address in the show notes.
Perfect. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I wanted to touch on something that's been swirling in my mind. As we've been talking, we've discussed how individuals and NGOs can leverage social media to influence companies. But what about when the roles are reversed?
You mean when companies try to influence individuals? That's that's a really thought-provoking question, especially when you consider the sheer volume of data companies collect about us. Through our online activity, they know our likes, dislikes, habits, even our fears.
A goldmine of information. And with the rise of targeted advertising and personalized content, it seems like companies are getting increasingly sophisticated in how they use this data to influence our behavior.
It's not just about selling products anymore, it's about shaping perceptions, pushing agendas, and potentially even influencing political outcomes.
Exactly. And that's where things start to feel a little unsettling. It's one thing to be aware of a company trying to sell you a product, but it's another thing entirely when they're trying to shape your beliefs or your worldviews without you even realizing it.
It's like a whole new level of online reputation management, where the target audience isn't just customers or the media, but society as a whole. And it raises some serious ethical considerations about the power dynamics at play.
It makes you wonder who's really in control, who decides what we see, what information we're exposed to, and how that ultimately shapes our understanding of the world.
It highlights the importance of digital literacy, critical thinking, and media awareness. We need to be savvy consumers of online information, questioning the sources, considering the motives, and developing a healthy skepticism towards anything that seems too good to be true.
It's like we need to develop a sort of online immune system, one that can protect us from the constant barrage of information and potential manipulation.
That's a great analogy. We need to be aware of the tactics being used, understand the potential impact, and develop strategies for navigating the online world in a way that empowers us, not manipulates us.
It's a challenge we all face in this digital age. But awareness is the first step. By understanding the dynamics at play, we can start to reclaim our agency and make more informed choices about how we engage with the online world. So, to our listeners out there, the internet is an incredible tool for communication, connection, and learning. But it's also a powerful tool that can be used to shape our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors.
Stay curious, stay skeptical, and most importantly, stay engaged. The future of our digital society depends on it.
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights into the ever-evolving world of online reputation management. Until next time, Stay vigilant and keep exploring.